Is there a big trade on the horizon between the Chargers and an unnamed NFL team? Because right now it seems like there is some growing interest with Quentin Johnston, and there is some interest with the Chargers to potentially being willing to move on from him. We're going to discuss the latest trade rumors around Johnston in today's video, but make sure that you hit that subscribe button. One, because we're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers, and you're going to help us do that. But more importantly, we are going to be here for all of the latest news and rumors. Remember, before anything really happens in the NFL, there are rumors. We're going to alert you of those rumors. And the minute that news breaks, we are going to have a video out here on the channel for you. I promise you that. No one will work harder at covering the Los Angeles Chargers than Chat Sports and Chargers Now host Will Ortner. Now, let's get into the video. I'm Will Ortner. This is Chargers Now, and ESPN is already linking the Los Angeles Chargers and the New York Jets as potential trade partners going in to the 2026 NFL Draft and really in the 2026 NFL offseason, which I find fascinating because the Jets have a need at wide receiver that the Chargers could very easily fill. Do not believe me? Well, let's go to ESPN's beat reporter Rich Cimini on the New York Jets and what he thinks his team that he covers could end up making a move for. He says, don't sleep on the possibility of Mougey trading for a veteran. It's already been an active offseason for wide receiver trades, and you're talking about a GM who has made 12 player trades in a little over a year. Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Rashod Bateman, Baltimore Ravens, Quentin Johnston, Los Angeles Chargers, and Dontayvion Wicks of the Green Bay Packers have all been mentioned as trade possibilities. Well, when we look at this, that might just be a rumor. So I want to dive into the reasons why this trade could become a possibility and why this trade could end up becoming something that is set in stone. Because it definitely feels like there's a little bit of smoke here to these Quentin Johnston trade rumors. And if there's a little bit of smoke, well, I bet you there's a little bit of fire as well. So when I look at this from a Jets perspective, why would the Jets be potentially willing to make this trade? Well, it's going to help their new starting quarterback that they just traded for, Geno Smith. When we look at this New York team, obviously they have some weapons, but they probably don't have as many weapons as they would probably like. And when you look at Geno Smith has been someone who's had a lot of success before in the past, but he's also been someone who's struggled turning the football over. When Geno was at his best, he was in Seattle. He had Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and they were fantastic. When he was at his worst, he was in Las Vegas with the Raiders, and I'll let you figure out which wide receiver number one he was throwing to. Don't say Brock Bowers. He plays tight end. When we look at the Jets' QB depth chart, it's very clear that this is going to be Geno's team right now. The question is where will the Jets go? Because it does feel like Geno is not going to be the quarterback of the future for this squad. He is more than likely going to be the quarterback of right now. He is going to be a bridge quarterback until the Jets can come in and bring in a rookie. But let's focus in on Geno. He's a guy that has been able to complete the ball at a very high percentage throughout his career, but he's also had a very big issue when it comes to turning over the football. Clearly, the arm talent is there when you look at Geno Smith, but you can also see what gets him into trouble, and that's sometimes he's got a little bit of Brett Favre in him where he thinks that he can make every throw. The problem is, most people, not even Brett Favre, can make every throw. Over the last 4 seasons, obviously, Geno is a comparable starting quarterback in the National Football League. He's competent for the most part, but he does make some big mistakes when it comes to turning the football over. He trusts himself too much, and it leads to big mistakes. When you are the New York Jets, what's the best way to get your quarterback the ability to trust, one, who he's throwing the football to, but two, give himself the ability to make the smart play and check the ball down so that way the pass catcher can end up making the big moves? Well, you get them another weapon. You get Geno Smith as many weapons as possible because he has shown in his time in Seattle he can be a successful quarterback in the National Football League. But he's also shown in his previous stint with the Jets and with his last stop in Las Vegas, if he doesn't have a true blue number one option, well, then he might be struggling a little bit. So let's find him another weapon. That's why the Jets would make this trade. Another reason why the Jets would make this trade is because, well, maybe they're looking at a rookie quarterback. When we look at Geno Smith, I told you, he's not Mr. Right, he's Mr. Right now. And as good as Geno Smith could be potentially, it does feel like the Jets know that they need to find a quarterback of the future. They were linked early on in the draft to potentially taking quarterback Dante Moore from Oregon at pick number 2. Well, now that Dante Moore has announced that he would not be in the NFL draft, that's bumped everybody up a slot, and Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson is the biggest recipient of this. So Ty Simpson clearly seems to be the next quarterback after Mendoza that's going to be taken. Now, will the Jets take him at pick number 2? No, probably not. But could they potentially take him with their second-round pick, which is very early in this draft, or potentially trade back in to the first round so they can get the fifth-year control on Simpson? That is something that is totally possible. When we look at the last season for Simpson, where he was a true blue starter, he was actually a pretty good quarterback in college football. In fact, at one point, we had multiple really smart college football experts saying that he was one of the top guys for potentially being a Heisman candidate and winning the Heisman Trophy. Now, obviously, Simpson didn't end up coming away with a victory there in the Heisman, and honestly, the last couple of games at the end of the year, whether he was injured or not, were probably not as good as he would want. It's always smart to get as many weapons around a starting quarterback that is young as possible. It's always smart to have as many weapons around your quarterback as possible anyways. But the more that you can do it while having as many weapons when they are younger, that's only going to lead to more success. When I look at this New York Jets team, I think it's important to note that they can always use an extra weapon, especially if that's the plan that they decide to go down. When we look at the next thing, the Jets clearly need wide receiver insurance. That's something that's going to be very important for this franchise. Because right now, when you look at the wide receivers that they have on the roster, they have obviously a true blue star when it comes to Garrett Wilson. But when it comes to the rest of the Chargers, well, that's where things get a little bit interesting. When we look at this Jets wide receiver depth chart, I think it's important to note that Garrett Wilson is a true blue starter, and I think that he is a star and he makes a lot of money and he is very much deserving of that money. But Adonai Mitchell is someone who has shown that he can be successful, but at the same time, I wouldn't sit here and say that he's a true blue, for sure, guaranteed stamp at home wide receiver number 2. I don't even know that I would say that he's a wide receiver 3. When we look at his 2 years in the National Football League, obviously there is something there, but I would not sit here and tell you that that is the makings of a true blue star. And while Quentin Johnston might not be as successful as everyone was hoping that he would be in LA, to sit here and say he would not be an upgrade from Mitchell would just be wrong. So this could be a good insurance policy for the New York Jets because they could look at Mitchell and say, we think he's going to be a number 2, but we're not sure. So let's go grab Quentin Johnston, a guy who can be a 2. And if Mitchell turns out, well then great. We have 3 really good wide receivers. And if he doesn't turn out, well that's fine. That's okay because we're going to have Johnston here and he'll end up being the number 2 wide receiver. So I think that that is a good reason why the Jets could end up turning that way. When I look more now towards the Chargers, which will be kind of the last couple of reasons why I think a trade could be incoming, is that it doesn't feel like general manager Joe Hortiz or head coach Jim Harbaugh have really factored in Quentin Johnston into their long-term plans. Now, what do I mean by that? Quentin Johnston is still on his rookie deal, and the team has the opportunity to make sure that they have control of him and his contract for the next 2 years, because right now he's going into year 4, and they could easily pick up his 5th-year option. The problem is that the Chargers, well, they haven't picked up that option yet. Now, there's plenty of time, a little bit over a month, because they have until May 1st, but it does feel like from word coming out of Johnston's camp and word coming out of the Chargers camp that they don't really plan on giving him that 5th-year option. I kind of understand it because Johnston has been good, not great, but at the same time, he's someone that you might consider giving him that 5th-year option because he has all the talent. We haven't seen him in a Mike McDaniel offense, and the worst thing that could possibly happen would be for him to turn out to being a true blue star, and then the Chargers aren't able to re-sign him because he goes somewhere else and ends up making more money. But when we look at the stats for Johnston, again, because he's a first-round pick, they are a little bit disappointing. But to sit here and say that Johnston is not a viable player in the National Football League, well, that's just simply wrong. He's a guy who, while he hasn't had a 1,000-yard year, is still clearly very successful in the red zone, has a lot of touchdowns to his name, 18 to be exact. He still can go and outrun most players in the National Football League that are trying to cover him. So there's still a lot of room for growth there. And not every player is someone who comes in right away and is a great star. That could be a reason why the Jets would want to go get him. I look at the Chargers right now, and it feels like they potentially might want to go in a different direction. And if they want to go into a different direction than Johnston, well, then trading him would make a lot of sense because you'd get more capital. The Chargers will not trade Quentin Johnston. That is a sentiment that I've heard in the comment section, and that's a sentiment that I'm about 50-50 on right now. Let me know if you agree that the Chargers will not trade him, or let me know if you disagree that the Chargers will not trade him. Make sure that you sound off in our comment section. I'm always reading. I'm trying my best to respond as much as possible to those who leave comments on our videos. So make sure that you go and leave that comment so I can respond back to you. The last reason why the Chargers might make this move is because they can gain more draft capital. If the Chargers make this trade and the Jets make this trade before the 2026 NFL Draft, well, now there's more opportunities for the Chargers to kind of fix some of the needs that they have right now. When you look at this Los Angeles Chargers team, for me to say that they're a Swiss Army cheese team, meaning they have lots of holes, well, that would just simply be wrong. They're not a Swiss cheese NFL team. But to sit here and say that they are a perfect cheese, they have no issues, no holes, well, that would be wrong as well, too. There are clear needs for this team, and when we look at those needs, obviously interior offensive line and edge rush are big deals for this squad. Interior defensive line help would be great. Getting younger at the safety position would be huge. Another corner might not be a bad idea for this team as well. And it seems pretty clear to all of us that General Manager Joe Hortiz does not want to make a change by going into free agency. At least not yet, because he doesn't want to mess with his comp picks that the Chargers will get for Odafe Oweh signing with another team in free agency. So the Chargers could make a trade here with Quentin Johnston, get some capital back on a player that they weren't planning on keeping next year anyways, and they can use that draft capital to potentially fill all the holes that they have right now. Now, to sit here and say that you're going to get a first-round pick back for Quentin Johnston, that's incorrect. In fact, you might not even get a second-round pick, but I'm going to be a bit favorable here in my trade idea. Because I think if the Chargers go out and they decide, let's get as many picks as possible, well, this could be an option that the Jets might be willing to do. Now, is this a little bit more team-friendly for the Chargers? Sure, but I'm also a little bit more biased. And when I look at the Jets and the amount of draft capital that they have in the 2026 class, there's enough room to spend, but they don't have a third-round pick. So could the Chargers end up getting the 44 pick in the second round and a seventh-round pick later on for Quentin Johnston? Now, there's a chance that you might have to throw in a sixth-round pick here for the Chargers. At that point, then it becomes kind of null and void, and really it's just Quentin Johnston for his second round. But I think that this is a clear option that could end up happening for the Chargers, and it would be a good move if they wanted to make this trade before the 2026 NFL Draft. I know it's not as strong as the 27 draft, but I still think that it's a very good draft. I'm going to ask you this. Would you make this trade? Now that you look at it, are you taking a second and a seventh round pick in the 2026 draft for Quentin Johnston? Let me know if this is a good trade idea, yes or no. It might be a little bit more team friendly than potentially the Chargers would be able to get, but I do think that it is a fun option and something fun to talk about. Always aim for the stars. There's a reason why you don't go into a contract negotiation with your boss and say, well, here's what I'm willing to take at the worst, because the boss will probably say, oh, okay, I'll take your low offer. You always highball. Maybe you end up coming in with a lower end. If you love this trade, make sure that you hit that thumbs up button as well. If you love the Los Angeles Chargers, always smash that thumbs up button on our videos. We love covering the team, and the more likes that we get, the more opportunities we get to go to our bosses and say, hey, good things are happening for us you need to have more content on your Chargers Now page. Hit that subscribe button as well. Help us get to 3K subscribers. I want to get there before the NFL draft, and I know that we can do it. Chargers fans, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video, and make sure that you bolt up.